Welcome to the Popish Plot. I'm Nate.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Mike.
Today, we're here to talk about, well, the difference between what you want and what you need. I know what you're thinking.
Ooh, is this one of the song ones? We're doing the Stones this week?
You don't always get what you want.
No.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Because that song doesn't really have any good theology.
We know we don't have Jess for those.
I would love
No.
that to be kind of sort of thing that we are doing. But, no. So, all right. So, and feel free to get in on this. Who here knows somebody who has at some point in time gone and said to a priest, you know, you really need to do a homily on X?
I did not know that was a possibility until one of our priest Twitter friends commented about how many people were insisting that he does a homily on this or this opposite thing.
Wait, you can do that?
I know.
See,
I got yelled at once because I wasn't pleased that we were doing the short version of the readings. I had no idea you could even comment on the homily.
well, that's fair. So, but I don't know about you. If you raised your hand, hopefully you were raising it because you know somebody else and not because you yourself have done it.
Or you honestly
Please, shout at your computer.
That we can see you through the internet.
But
So wish that was true.
But having listened,
It is just under very specific circumstances.
having
Although
had
oddly, then I wouldn't be able to watch YouTube like when going to bed.
but having had the opportunity to talk with some priests more candidly, or listen to other priests talk with each other on a more candid level, what surprised? I was listening to a podcast some priests were doing. I think it might have been clerically speaking, but it could have been Catholic stuff. You should know. I'm not really sure, but they were mentioning how they.
In Nate's head, all priests sort of just blend together.
Well, they all dress the same.
It's a fair point.
Unless they're a Franciscan, and then who knows what they're wearing.
Who knows what
But-
they're wearing?
Brown,
The
gray.
discussion was about they were discussing a parishioner who they were not naming,
Of course.
but who had come to them and gone and said something about how, you know, you really should do more homilies on this.
Which
And
I find amazing, because we're just like, could you just do whatever homily you want while standing within the range of the camera so the people at home can see you?
All Jess cares about is staying within your marks.
Exactly.
What you have to say, whatever.
It doesn't matter.
and as I listened to them talk, what they were already well aware of, and what really occurred to me is that this individual was not actually asking the priest to talk about something that they needed to hear, but something that they were pretty sure somebody else did.
Everybody's favorite game of look at those sinners over there.
Yep. You know, what you're not doing, Father, is you're not talking enough about the church's social teaching on procreative or contraceptive matters.
Which I have to say, as our bishop is not afraid to talk on that, there's a certain point where you're like, do we cover the kids' ears? I feel like we cover the kids' ears at this point. This is not a homily topic. This is you send a letter out to the adults to discuss this issue.
You know, Father doesn't talk enough about the race issues that are in this country.
Father, what you need to do is you need to talk about X or Y, which I'm very concerned about.
Which I am very concerned that there might be people in this church that desperately need to hear. Now, the reason that this stuck out to me is because we did, for those of you who've been watching, at least for a little bit of a while, we did a whole thing in this summer about the deadly sins. Mm-hmm. And that one right there, that's a prideful one. You're going and making a determination about what somebody else needs for their salvation, but you're not really looking at what you need for yours.
Remember the parable of the Pharisee and the publican. The Pharisee who makes his very loud, ostentatious prayer about how great he is and what everybody else is doing wrong. And then the publican who very humbly won't even look up, but quietly beats his chest, asking the Lord to have mercy on him, a sinner.
Now, I'm fairly certain that when asked publicly to their face, most people would acknowledge, at least to some degree, that they are sinners. Mm-hmm. But the problem is...
And the ones who don't? Well, that's confirmation itself.
Yeah. But the problem is that more often than not...
I got a Bible passage for you.
More often than not, while we are more than willing to in order to maintain our good standing within the church, announce to another person that, hey, I'm just as much a sinner as anybody else, when it comes to us actually looking at ourselves and trying to figure out what we need, we are not very good at it.
We are really good at asking for what we want, or at least what we think we want.
Right. So
I would like us to never sing that song again that has the same tune as the Odd Land Sign, because it's always off. And it's not New Year's.
and if the screens aren't properly timed, I'm having trouble remembering what the next word is.
I have so many notes. Speed up the screen. Speed up the screens. No one knows what the lyrics are to this song.
So, while I was listening to this podcast, I was thinking to myself that I was sort of making a promise to myself that I was not going to be one of these people.
It does sound like you felt a little convicted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've never gone up to a priest and said, I really think that you need to be talking about this. I may have, in my heart, thought to myself, I wish he would talk more about this other thing.
But yeah, you're not the kind of guy who just goes around telling the priest what he should do.
No. I mean, once again, you can do that.
I didn't know that was an option.
But
I'm pretty sure he's the one in charge.
but so I was feeling...
That was a theme of many, many meetings for groups. You know, he's in charge. You could ask him nicely and point out, look, this is what it looks like when you don't stand on your mark.
I was feeling, though, like as though the Lord was putting something on my heart as to what proper humility should look like. And so I came to this decision that if I am going to ask a priest to talk about anything, whether it be me telling him he really needs to do more on subject X, or I would really like to hear a talk on subject X, I need to go and search within me and find the thing that I need to hear. Because the priest is up there being a pastor. He's trying to lead a flock, and...
Not just you.
Yeah, and I should not be playing Monday morning quarterback unless, of course, there was something that the coach could have done to help me play better.
Like stand on his mark.
Exactly. To help me play better in the game. I wasn't able to make that pass because of something that was wrong in mine.
But even if one does some discernment and feels it appropriate to approach their priest and request a homily, it still sounds like the best way to go about it would be to say, Father, it would be very helpful to some of us if you were to address this issue, instead of the much more presumptive, you know what you ought to preach about.
Or perhaps, Father, you know, I've been having a bit of a hard time with X, and I know that you know that you've got a lot of people that you're trying to preach to, and you need to tailor your homilies around that. But
and you may be planning to preach about Y, but there are those of us who need to hear about X.
But if you could find a way to figure X into it somewhere, not right now, maybe a little way down the road, but at the same time, please understand, this is a thing that I'm dealing with, and I could use a little guidance.
And that also fits in with our reoccurring theme of reading the Bible, because all the readings are set up years and years in advance. So, you know, if you know, the story at Mass is the parable of the lost coins, and you're like, hey, can you talk about this completely unrelated thing? Well, that's not going to fit. Or if you say, hey, can you talk about this thing that's totally related on Friday, the priest starts working on stuff, you know, Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah. Or maybe you look a week ahead and you go, you know, because you're right. If we're talking about, you know, say the parable of the talents, and you're like, you know, I'm really having an issue with sexual sin, and is there any way that you can factor that in?
It doesn't really work.
Okay, it's a 3-year cycle, so...
But if you go and you look ahead and you see a reading coming up, and you say, you know, I know that we're going to be preaching on this in a couple weeks. Or, this is a thing I've been dealing with.
Or, if the perfect gospel has just passed, well, hang on. It'll come around again in 3 years.
Yeah.
Or 2 if it's a daily mass reading.
Or 2 if it's the daily mass reading.
But still, even if you know the perfect one has passed, then perhaps what you need to do is just spend time reading that gospel over and over to help you on your own.
And praying on it and asking God to in the absence of more directed instruction from your priest, to provide you with the guidance and the strength that you need in your time of struggle.
Or, instead of asking Father to give a homily about it, maybe just make an appointment to talk to him about it yourself.
Yeah.
And I know that in my life, the most long-lasting impact have been from homilies that I didn't want to hear. And it wasn't until afterwards that I realized that was the homily I needed to hear.
Exactly. So anyways, now that we've told you to really think about what it is you want or need, go down below and tell us how we're not instructing you properly.
Because here at the Popish Plot, we pretty much talk about whatever we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Not necessarily what we need to talk about.
Well, we're kind of like a diocesan priest in that. We kind of get up, we kind of get in front of the camera, and we just start talking.
Except for we stand on our marks.
That has very little resemblance to most diocesan priests. They prepare well in advance.
And while you're down there, make sure to hit the like, the subscribe, and that bell next to it so you get notified when we have a new episode coming out. And until next time, remember to live your faith.
Love your faith.
And share that love.
Indeed. Well, it's Franciscan.
He's a Franciscan. He has to wear sandals.
That was like 5 minutes of the homily. I wear sandals all the time.
In the winter, it's really a pain.